So we have been having this sharing session where people have given their feedbacks, their questions, their takeaways, and we've been discussing them. So in this session, Ashish ji, would you want to start? Do you have any questions, or should we discuss the questions that Venugopal ji had brought out in his points?
Look, I actually commented. I had already given my comments related to Venuji's list of both maybe, clarity, doubt, as well as maybe queries. It was a mix of the three, and I'd given my thoughts for that. Immediately, there is nothing else I want to add to that.
Okay.
I would actually love to hear from someone else, what their thoughts are about that. That list. Thank you.
Okay, Venugopal ji hasn't joined now to elaborate. Does anybody have anything to add to whatever Ashish ji or Venugopal ji had brought on? So this is so Ashish ji, what Venugopal ji had brought in was a very kind of what I would call as a very technical question in terms of if I am able to use my neti to actually negate all my body and mind and my ego, then why is the need to actually go and understand Brahman? That was precisely the point that I understood from the questions.
Yeah.
So let me kind of.
So if I can just, since it's you have summarized it, for this part, I'll take the liberty, and sorry for interjecting, but I want to just give you my thought on that. I think that's what I was trying to. Maybe I did not, express it rightly in terms of the choice of words. But what I was trying to say is that, there are two steps, right? I mean, what he is talking about to me sounds like, staying at the level of ensuring that we reach the Karma Yoga phase and become a Karma Yogi and clean up all our day-to-day activities. But to my mind, yes, I mean, there is nothing wrong with someone having the desire to stay at that level and targeting that and staying within that realm. But what I feel is, we have been discussing so far the ability for us to understand the real truth, the real Gyan, and that Gyan really is for us to be able to understand that the Brahman is all pervading, unqualified, unassuming, and if we can realize that is when we will reach above the Karma Yogi phase and come out of this whole cycle. Because to my mind, what I feel that even when we do Karma Yoga, and let's assume that, due to immense effort and developing a lot of understanding and hence cleansing of our activities, even if we reach at that stage, we are still, to my mind, stuck with some attachment with things. I don't think we are able to let go of those attachments. Even when we become Karma Yogis, we still stay in that cycle. And what that will do is, it will not really create an emancipation wherein we go out of the karmic cycle. We still stay within that. And that to me is the difference between the two, and how I would respond to that question.
Correct. You put it correctly. I mean, in the sense, Karma Yoga gives you relative peace, but it doesn't give you the ultimate freedom that we are looking for. And unless a person is able to break the cycle of samsara, both in terms of being able to gain this absolute peace, absolute security and happiness, and also to break the cycle of birth and death. Karma Yoga doesn't give you, by becoming a Karma Yogi, you are not able to break the cycle of, neither are you able to break the cycle of birth and death, nor will you be able to get absolute peace and happiness. But Karma Yoga is an essential step, without which you cannot go to Jnana Yoga and get your Jnana. So it's like Karma Yoga can be compared to cooking. I am hungry, I want to quench my hunger, or I want to have food to basically overcome hunger. But just by cooking alone, I will not be able to satisfy my hunger. I will have to cook and then eat. In the same way, Karma Yoga allows you, it's like a preparatory process, it allows you some bit of comfort. Okay, food is within my grasp now. Now I can actually satisfy my hunger. So that is how Karma Yoga has to be understood. That's one point. But Venuji's points were, if I'm going through this, his points again, Venuji's points were not looking at Karma Yoga or that Neti Neti as a means, or the Neti Neti as a means of actually stopping at Karma Yoga, and therefore I don't need to go to Jnana Yoga. Venuji's points were a bit sharp, in the sense he was saying, why do I need to go to why do I need to remove this veil because we see it as false? We don't know what that veil hides. We have no experiential connection with that yet. And he means Brahman here. And he says, so working to remove the veil, expecting to get Satchidananda based on Shastra Pramana is itself on a treasure hunt, with a sneak peek through Shastras on the end, and hence petty. And this very knowledge of the end through Shastras is detrimental to the process of dropping the false, because the possibility of this end has strengthened the I. I can see some elements of J. Krishnamurti here in terms of his understanding of how we should approach this. So I'm going to call out a few points with regards to this Neti Neti concept, and why we cannot stop, and why we should actually looking at I. His view is, if we are pursuing the path of understanding the self, it will strengthen our ego. That's his point of view here. And he says this positive assertion. So what I said to him earlier was that, when you say Neti Neti, you are basically removing the false identity. I'm not this, I'm not that. But you cannot stop with that. You will have to go and understand who you are. And for that, he had mentioned that the positive assertion can give a dangerous megalomania to the petty self and work totally in the opposite direction of annihilation of the self. That's his point. So anyway, I'll just go through certain points. Again, these are some of the concepts that we should remember. Neti Neti, it is a method to understand who I am. And it doesn't, by saying Neti Neti, I will not be able to get the final vision. What Neti Neti does is it removes the false identity. So, I am not the Annamaya Kosha, I am not the Pranamaya Kosha, I am not the Manomaya Kosha, I am not the Vijnanamaya Kosha, I am not the Anandamaya Kosha. That is what Neti does. But then I cannot stop there, and then I say, then who am I? I am that Satchidananda Swarupa on which all these have been superimposed on. This is the basic substratum on which all these have been, all these have been actually superimposed. That is how we have to understand. So by negation, what we do is basically we become free from this habitual wrong identification. But I will have to ultimately shift to understand what is my real I. If I say I am not this, I am not that, As I said, the intellect will not allow you to stop at that. It will not allow you to stop to say, okay, you're not that, then who are you? You are not this, then who are you? That question would have to be answered in any case. So you cannot stop at neti neti is my point. It can remove the wrong notions, but neti neti cannot reveal the right or true nature of the self. And his point about, it can be a dangerous megalomania to the petty self. No, aham brahmasmi does not inflate ego at all. What it says is basically the ego, the ahankara that we have. In fact, when I understand Brahman properly, truly, then it will say that this ego, that ahankara that I have had, it doesn't have an independent reality on its own. The real I is actually the pure consciousness which is all pervading. And this direct pointing to this Brahman can be done only through Shastras and through Upadesha. So if we do not move from neti neti to that positive identification, we will not have clarity. We will not have any clarity. We will be still confused as to who we are. Yes, Ashish.
I think just to supplement that, my thought is, look, I think what he's probably connecting to through the neti neti, comment is the classic Western scientific methodology of proving through negation, proving the truth through negation. But what we are I think what we have been learning, and this is what I have actually filtered for myself, is that negation does not mean you know the Gyan. Negation only means you've been able to filter out. Now, have you been able to filter out all the negations? The answer then becomes hazy, right? And the filtration is really complete when you know the truth. Then you know everything else is what is negated.
Yeah.
Till you have known the truth, you don't know what all needs negation, right?
Correct.
So I think that is one part which we are probably missing when we are just sticking to saying that, okay, neti neti is probably, the other part, Guruji, I wanted to highlight is this ahankar bhav. I think aham brahmasmi, the realization of aham brahmasmi, actually, if we stick to that word realization, to me, that will have meaning, real meaning, in the filtration of all these bhavs. Because the realization would mean that all these bhavas are actually not important. Positive, negative, any of those bhavas are not important, because if there is only one, there cannot be ahankar.
Exactly.
For what? Right?
Yep.
So any kind of bhav, positive, negative, is kind of meaningless. And that's the whole journey, right? For us to be able to realize that there is only one, there is nothing else. And hence any of these bhavas, if they are coming to your mind, you need to then delve deeper for the reason for those bhavas and understand that why they are not important. They are only a stepping stone, is the way I have understood it.
Yeah. Exactly. You're right. And this, the Western idea of actually negation, you have to start with an hypothesis and then you actually negate, and therefore the hypothesis remains true. But in this case, what we do is, we say that the self exists. The self, I exist. There is no second opinion about it. I exist, I know. So if I exist, who am I? Am I the body? No. So we actually do not start with a hypothesis to say that you are Brahman and then remove everything around it to say that you are Brahman. What we say is, I do understand that I exist. We start with this I exist standpoint, and for me to be existing, who am I? and then we start negating all the layers. So we do either the neti neti can happen through the 5 sheaths. So the Panchakosha Vilakshana, we can identify that I am Satchidananda Swarupa, or we go with the 3 states. So waking stage, deep sleep state, and the dream state. And then we go through these 3 states and say, okay, I existed in all these 3 states, but I am not the one who is the waker, I am not the deep sleeper, I am not the dreamer, but I am that Swarupa which has connected throughout. So that is another way of identifying the self. Then the other way of doing is basically Drik Drishya Viveka. We say anything that I can actually objectify is not me. So I can objectify this book, so I am not book. I can objectify this laptop, therefore I am not the laptop. I can objectify my hand, and therefore I am not the hand. I can objectify my body, and therefore I am not the body. I can objectify my mind, and therefore I am not the mind. I can objectify my intellect, and therefore I am not the intellect. And therefore I am that one subject which cannot be objectified, and therefore I cannot be an object of experience. The experiencer is I. And that way, another way to actually identify or understand the self. One of the points that I want to cover, although Venugopalji is not here in this, but I want to actually see if it is recorded, then he can actually listen to it at a later point of time. His point around, that positive assertion that Aham Brahmasmi can feed the ego. No, it doesn't. Aham Brahmasmi, in fact, does not inflate the ego. What Aham Brahmasmi does, it actually dissolves the ego completely. The ego says, I am this person, I am special, I am this. So, whereas what Vedanta says there was never a real person, there was never a person in reality. You are not limited by this body and mind and to say that you are this all-pervading Brahman. So where is this feeding of ego? In fact, the ego is dissolved completely. And he also mentioned that, seeking Brahman is like seeking a treasure. It strengthens the ego. No, we are not seeking Brahman. What we are doing is we are removing the ignorance about what I already am. It is not a treasure hunt. I am not doing a treasure hunt to say, where is my Brahman? I have to search and find it. Brahman was always there. Brahman is there always. It's like the rope is always there. I am seeing the snake. And what I am trying to do is actually trying to remove my ignorance that it is not a snake, but it is just a rope. It is just a recognition. It's a cognitive change that I have to bring about. And thus, this is not a seeking a treasure. And another point that he had, a peaceful life is possible with ego dissolution. So why bother about Brahman? Now, you can dissolve the ego only if you are knowing sure that who you are. Otherwise, for for a short period of time, by doing this neti neti, you will be able to say, okay, I am not the ego. But then you will come back soon. In a few minutes, you will come back to the same state where you are to say that you are the ego. Unless you can actually hold on to something that I am not the ego, but I am that. So, first of all, it's not just for peaceful life, as Ashish ji you mentioned earlier. It's not just for peaceful life. It is about freedom from mortality and freedom from limitation, freedom from fear, freedom from this smallness that I am actually a small entity in this vast universe. It's freedom from all of those things. And by actually understanding that I am this Brahman, I am free from mortality, I am free from fear, I am free from limitations, I automatically get a peaceful life. I am automatically I'm full of bliss. So this peace and bliss are actually byproducts of knowing who I am. I'm actually not seeking Brahman for peace and happiness, but the moment I know I am Brahman, or I'm able to realize that I am Brahman, I'm automatically happy. I'm automatically peaceful. It's just like the 10th man story in that story where they cross the river. They did not seek happiness when they were unhappy that, or when they became sad that one person has been drowned and we are only 9 of us. So they were not actually seeking happiness. They were unhappy because one was missing. And the moment they say Dasamastu tu, you are the 10th man, thou art you, Tattvamasi, then the moment he understood that I am the 10th person, then immediately the happiness came in. So the realization of the self, the byproduct is happiness. So that's something that we have to understand, that
Yeah, just Guruji, I think, and I don't know, I'm finding it a little strange as well to discuss on Venuji's thoughts while he is not here, to probably maybe clarify some of the interpretations we are ascribing, right, to what he has mentioned in his comments. But nonetheless, I think when I read through that, I realized this is sometimes what I have also felt, that it becomes a little too difficult and onerous to handle the full journey at one go. I think this seems to me like that. While taking the first step of trying to cleanse our own acts first, our karmas, seems a more attainable target, and we all are groomed to gravitate towards a more attainable target first, right? And do that, and then, so it's like put one step ahead of the other. Don't think about the journey being 42 kilometers of running, just one step at a time. And I think that is the way I have taken it.
agree. I mean, I would suggest most of us to go through that path of understanding, take small little steps, and then try to and my tenets of Vedanta, where I said it's the whole thing is about becoming better every day. By every day you do something small and then become better person than what you are. Ultimately you will end up there where you need to end. The only thing that we have to understand is that the end goal, we have to be clear about the roadmap and the path, the direction that we need to take, by what we will get moksha, what is moksha, where am I, what do I need to do next. That's all.
Yeah. And I also wanted to just bring in my thought about one specific, thought or paragraph that he had mentioned. I'll just read it out first. He has said, why are we not just sticking to these very logical, experientially possible truths, but then go further to establish or state that a Brahman or Atman is lying as the substratum of all this, and that Shastras are the only pramana for this. Correct me if I'm mistaken on this part, but I don't think Shastras are the pramana for this. I thought Shastras are providing you with the framework to understand the logic, right? The pramana is for you to actually realize. Because honestly, there is no pramana per se. It's more a realization through multiple routes. And that's where I think when we are talking about either the Advait way, because he has later, I think, commented on that as well. My thought is Advait or the what is it? Sorry, it's going from my mind, but basically the puja route that you establish in each of the Bhakti Vedanta part. I thought we discussed this in great detail earlier, that these are also created as stepping stones, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately the final step is the realization of the Gyan, and that's why you had specifically, I remember, mentioned this, that whether we follow bhakti or we follow first karma yoga, final step needs to be the Gyan yoga, understanding, realizing, and the realization is what really cleanses everything. We can keep trying, but we will not be able to get out of us all the bad thoughts or all the wrong thoughts. Bad is not the correct word, but probably all the wrong notions can only be neutralized by the attainment of the Gyan, is what I had understood.
Correct. Correct, Ashuji. Yes, you are also right when you said that ultimately the self I have to realize. The Shastras are a pramana in the sense before I came to Vedanta, I have been always thinking myself as this body and mind. I never had thought about an Atma and what is that Atma, where it is that Atma, how is the Atma related to this body and mind, what happens to the Atma after death, what is the relationship between this Atma and the other Atma, what is the relationship between Ishvara and me, what is the relationship between this world and me. All these things have been taught by the Shastras. So Shastras are a pramana in that sense. But merely having that pramana doesn't give me realization. Merely going through that pramana will not give me realization. I will have to make that knowledge as my own for me to be able to get that moksha or be in the state of moksha. So for which I will have to do Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, and for that Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, so what is Shravana is basically Shastras, taking the Shastras as pramana. Then Manana is where I actually reflect to see whether the Shastras, are they right? Am I actually are they right in the sense, why is my experience different? How do I know? How do I actually try to understand this with my limited experience? Then the experience that I am having here are those that of the mind and not of these. I am not talking about when I actually take the self to be this body and mind. Obviously, this will not be in line with what Shastra says, and therefore, if I actually move my focus or take my identity out from this body and mind and take my identity to be the Atma, then what Shastra says makes more sense. And then I am able to realize that I am actually that Satchidananda Swarupa Brahman Atma, and therefore this whole thing makes sense. In that sense, Shastra becomes a pramana, but ultimately the realization is a self-effort. I cannot realize without taking necessary steps at my end. As I said, the Shastras as a pramana is needed because in one of the classes I had mentioned there are 5 steps to realize to get to the end goal. Initially, we always start with this feeling that I am this body mind. So when we deal with this body and mind, and before we had come to Vedanta, we have always taken ourselves to be this body and mind. Some people stay only with the body, but most of us would also identify ourselves with the mind. So I am the body mind. Then we realize in the second stage is where we realize I am body mind and I have an Atma inside me. So I have a body and I am body and mind, but I have an Atma which is inside me. That is the second step. Then the third step is I am that Atma and I have been given this body and mind. Then the fourth step is the Atma which is within me is the same as the Atmas all around. So there is actually only one Atma connecting everybody. And all of these Atmas that we see are a reflection. Just like the sun gets reflected in the many pots of water. each pot of water seems to have its own sun. But in truth, there is only one sun. So that is the next stage where we say, okay, I am actually the reflection, or what I consider here, this Atma, which is me, is actually a reflection. I am actually the original sun. Then the final stage is where I say, there is only sun. There is only Atma. This body, mind, this universe, this Jagat are all a superimposition on that Atma. It is the Brahman which is actually manifesting as this world. It is the Brahman which is manifesting as this different bodies. Just like in the dream, it is just the consciousness within our mind, with the help of that Maya, it is actually projecting this universe. Just like in a dream, the dream world is projected within my reflected consciousness. Everything seems real during the dream. There are people, there is time, there is space, everything is there, but it gets projected and then it finally resolves into me. The whole dream was within me. In the same way, the self Brahman, this whole world is projected onto me and it finally resolves within me. So this is the fifth stage that we have to understand. So yeah, we'll have to go slow, but that's the roadmap, that's the end game that we have to achieve.
And Guruji, one point on which I'm sorry, I actually missed out on this statement, and I'm just reading it again and again because his long comment keeps throwing up different things in my mind at me, and makes me think a little bit. So while hearing these steps from you, I also read this point he has made, which I definitely want to respond to. I was so far not trying to respond. I was so far actually trying to give my thoughts on some of those topics. But this one I have to respond to because he has written. So that's why should we learn about Atman and Brahman? Because that's Purushartham. So that's a journey seeking a result, which of necessity brings the subject I, and hence inherently limited and petty. I really want to actually make the statement here as a response. It is not a journey, because a journey is where I decide a target and I move towards it. Sorry, you have been put on this path and you have to travel this path. There is no other way. A path is the wrong term again to use, and you have to travel towards that target. You don't have a choice. It is up to you to keep wandering in the forest without knowing any route at all, and let that journey become an infinitely long journey with no realization of the purpose of it, or you use the route of Shastras and Gurus to understand that what is the path that can be actually taken to complete this journey and finish it. You don't have the choice. You have been, pushed into that direction. You are going there.
Exactly.
You have no choice. It's up to you to keep roaming around or reach.
Yeah.
That's your choice. That's really the choice we have.
Yeah. Everybody who is born would have to get to that final stage one day. It's a question of how long and when do you want to get there. That's all. Good point. I think I'll stop there with regards to discussions on the points raised by Venugopalji. Any other point or anybody wants to discuss or bring about or provide some takeaways? Asha ji, welcome back.
Hi, Hari Om Balaji, thank you.
Any other point from anybody? Ashish ji, any other points or questions that you would want to discuss?
I'm just trying to remember. I think I had one point I had identified specifically in Ashaji's commentary, which I wanted to just get into a bit more detail with your help. And I'm just trying to remember what was this. It was in my head, and it's just slipping right now because I started thinking a lot about the points that Venuji had made. It's kind of just, it'll come to me. Just give me a minute. I'm sure it'll come to me.
Is it about the world be mithya when it is clearly seen? Or is it? Or it's about the materialistic world? Or
I'm just pulling out her commentary too, because then once I will look at it, I'm sure I will immediately. Yeah, here it is. Just give me 1 minute. You please continue the discussion. I'll just tell you. And sorry about all the sneezing by my dog who's sitting next to me.
We're not able to hear anything, don't worry. Ashaji, you have any other points after what we have discussed?
Who, me?
Are you okay with the points that were discussed?
Yeah, I'm just taking it all in right now. I haven't really had the time to further analyze it. I think I would like to take some time to ingest it a little bit more. But I've been reading this Bhagavad Puranam, just started reading it, and in that I came upon the section where it says that you can also achieve moksha through pure bhakti. That's how the gopis achieved moksha by just their pure love with Krishna, which seems to be contradictory to what we learned in the class. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that. I mean, maybe it may not be today, but maybe at some other time.
No, we can do it today, if it's okay with you.
It resonates with me so much because Bhakti Bhavam is something that is much easier. I'm not saying that everybody can get it. Again, you need certain level of maturity to get that Bhakti Bhavam, depending upon what life throws at you. I think only through experiences you get into Bhakti. But I think that is much easier for us to relate and experience than Jnana. Jnana seems like a very, very far away thing. So I just feel that I want to set as Bhakti as my immediate goal, and then I need to get there. I mean, you do your Karma Yoga and focus on Bhakti first to get closer to the God, I mean, using the Sagun form. And then once you reach there, I think it needs a certain level of maturity before we even start realizing or understanding or appreciating what Jnana Yoga is, right? So it's like we are now in secondary school, but we are being taught like a PhD syllabus. So it's not resonating with us as much. It's my just thoughts based on all the questions that are being thrown out and during these sessions, which is very interesting actually. Everybody, yeah.
First of all,
do we really need to go to Jnana at this point? I think that is what I am contemplating on.
Sure. I mean, but let me I can also send you a topic discussed by Swami Paramarthanandaji where exactly the same question has been asked and he had given a lecture on that. But there are key points there from that lecture of Swami Paramarthananda. I will pick it up. Basically, first of all, we have to understand is it's very clear, Shastras have said that only Jnana gives bhakti. Actually, Jnana gives moksha. Bhakti, of course, in Bhagavata, especially about the Gopikas when they talk, it says, okay, now Gopikas have attained moksha through bhakti. That's what it says. So obviously we have this contradiction here, or we need to reconcile. Okay. Now, when somebody says, can bhakti give moksha? We say, first of all, if you look at the Shastra Pramana, the primary Pramana for Shastras are the Vedas. and every other text which is not the Vedas are called either Smritis or Bhashyams or whatever. So if you look at Vedas, there are two statements that are made in Veda within the same suktam. It says, Tameva Vidwan Iham. I'll just take this one. Tameva Vidvana Mrita Iha Bhavati Nanyah Panta Ayanaya Vidyati. So, Tamevam Vidwan Amritam Iha Bhavati. Only a Vidwan will reach the goal of Amritam. Amritam is moksham. Vidwan means through knowledge you will reach the state of moksha. So somebody comes back and says, okay, but jnana through moksha is possible. Maybe through bhakti also is possible. Then the next line says, Nanyah panta ayanaya vidyate. There is no path other than this. Within this Purusha Suktam, this is part of Purusha Suktam. This is once it says, and as if we might forget again, in a few lines afterwards, again it says the same thing but slightly changed. Similarly, again it says, Tamevam Vidvana Mrita Iha Bhavati. Again it says only through jnana you get. Nanyah panta vidyateya naya. Ayanaya vidyate, vidyateya naya. That's all. Just to change the words, but it says there is no other path other than jnana for moksha. It is in Purusha Suktam. It is Vedas. It's a Vedas which is giving this. Now, and there are not just this Veda statement. There are many other Vedic statements where it clearly talks about only jnana to be the way of moksha. Even within Bhagavad Gita, if you see the 5th chapter itself, we would have discussed, it would have said, even in the 4th chapter, which says, Sarvam Akilam Partha Jnane Parisamapyate. Everything finally has to resolve in jnana. So this is what the Veda says. Then when all this Bhagavatam and other places where it comes up, it says that bhakti can give you moksha. First of all, we have to understand, and it's actually relevant to chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita also. We will be learning that bhakti, what happens is when you have saguna bhakti so much, like a Meera or a Gopika, where you are constantly in the thought of constantly having this thought of Ishvara, Bhagavan, Saguna Ishvara, and you should have it Nishkama also. You cannot have Sakama Bhakti. You will have to have Nishkama Bhakti and you will have Saguna Ishvara Upasana at all times. Then at the time of your death, if you are able to remember that Ishvara, then you will have what is known as Krama Mukti. Krama Mukti means the jiva will go through a particular Shukla Dasha. We will be, chapter 8 is full of that. Once we come to chapter 8, you will see. It will reach the state of, it will go to Brahmaloka, and then finally Brahma will teach this jnana, and then you attain moksha from there. But ultimately, again, you will have to get that jnana there. Otherwise, you will not get moksha. So, it is what is known as it is not the final step towards moksha. It is one of the steps, but actually speaking, if you understand the 8th chapter, if you listen to the 8th chapter, you will come to know that having that kind of a bhakti, having that kind of a krama mukti is actually much difficult to get than the karma upasana jnana yoga that we do. You will It looks easy, but it is not. That is what we'll understand later on. But so to summarize, Vedas are Swata Pramana, so they are the primary sources of knowledge, and Vedas have clearly stated that it's only jnana. Bhakti, it's like some places, even in Bhagavad Gita, it will say you do karma yoga and you will attain moksha. Even in the 5th chapter, we would have understood this, we would have seen this. It's like, okay, you keep doing karma yoga, then you will automatically be coming to upasana yoga and jnana yoga, and then finally getting moksha. It is the same thing that is said about bhakti. Bhakti, what does it do? The bhakti that we normally have, it helps, it is much needed for even a regular spiritual student or normal spiritual student who is in this path of Vedanta. Having bhakti is essential. You need to have bhakti, only then you will be able to follow karma yoga properly. And bhakti in turn allows you to cleanse yourself. Bhakti allows you to gain titiksha. Because if you say bhakti involves puja or bhajans or doing nama sankirtana, whatever, or even japa or parayana, which means you will have to actually sit in a place and perform this. That requires amount of titiksha. That requires some amount of shamaha and damaha. So these are qualities that will be you will gain as a result of bhakti. So obviously bhakti is a qualifier, definitely. It helps in qualifying oneself. But ultimate moksha is only through jnana. I'm happy to share across this particular talk from Swami Paramarthanandaji, where exactly the same question is being discussed.
Okay, thank you so much. Look forward to that.
Yeah. So similarly, even in Bhagavad Gita, you see, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. It is only through jnana one gets moksha, and for jnana one needs to go to Guru and one needs to have the Shastra as pramana. So that's the understanding. So there is again, if you actually wait until the 8th chapter, you will get to understand more about this bhakti and this saguna upasana, nishkama saguna upasana, and the benefits, and how do we get moksha through that krama mukti. Yes, Ashishji? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Guruji. I think two points I'll comment on. One, what I stated earlier, there was one point from the list of challenges that Ashaji had sent across, on which the point number 5, which said that the argument that it is not the world that is it starts with perhaps. The argument that it is not the world that is an illusion, but our interpretation of the world that is an illusion seems to hold more water. The cause of our sorrows is not the world, but our interpretation of what the world throws at us. That breeds negative thoughts in us and steers us away from the spiritual path. I just wanted you to please comment on this, because to my mind, actually both parts, right? The world as well as our interpretation of the world, both are illusion actually. And fundamentally both are part of the same illusion. It is just that one is a primary illusion and the other is our reaction to that illusion, which itself is an illusion, right? But I think they're part of the same illusion is my understanding. And I wanted you to just help me with probably getting that right. And the second part, I think the second comment I wanted to make is related to this bhakti we were just discussing. I personally feel that these thoughts, as you have stated, my understanding is that these have been created, that bhakti can also result in
Moksha.
In moksha, or karma yoga can result in moksha, are just kind of incentive systems that have been created by individuals who have written those commentaries or itihasas or whatever, just to create an incentive structure for you to at least start on the path and treat it as an important path which will lead you there, right? That's the way I kind of understood both sides in a way.
Correct. Let me get the second question first. So the bhakti, yes. Remember, Bhagavata Purana was also written by Vyasacharya. So obviously, Vyasa was the one who had actually codified the Vedas. Vyasacharya is the one who has actually done the Bhagavata Purana. Is it Vyasa? Did it? I believe so. But
it is Vyasa.
Yeah. So the question is, why would Vyasacharya say the same? I mean, say this. Yes, bhakti is important. Bhakti is important and it is necessary. It is a necessary step towards moksha. One cannot be spiritual without being religious. So bhakti is essential, and one cannot do karma yoga without having Ishvara in the mix. One cannot do upasana yoga without having Ishvara in the mix. So bhakti is essential, and therefore, as you said, it is an incentive for people to start on bhakti, because to start with bhakti becomes very easy to start with, at least. Because when I say bhakti, I don't need to first of all, if I come to karma yoga, for example, the idea is to cleanse the mind, which means I have to remove raga dvesha. With bhakti, what happens is, typically many people who are supposed to be great devotees do not seem to spend their time in actually cleansing their mind. As long as I am able to do my parayana, I am able to do my japa, and I am able to do this, I don't need to worry about cleansing my mind. I am not worried about being a better person, because I am a devotee of God. And that kind of an approach is where it becomes, I'm not saying for all, but for some people, they would want to take this easy path, because changing oneself is very difficult. So bhakti does not ask you to change, whereas Vedanta asks you to change. So it seems to be easy, and therefore I would like to go through that path. Is one reason why some people go through that path. But as you rightly said, bhakti is a necessary step. It is and it allows, by saying this, it incentivizes people to actually start on it. So that answered. Now the second question around the world, whether it is an illusion or the reaction to the world is our mistaken interpretation. Yes. World has one level of reality, which is what we call as vyavaharika satyam. But in the paramarthika viewpoint, it is nothing but mithya. It is nothing but a superimposition. Now, for us to actually immediately identify this world as mithya will be difficult. And therefore, what Shastra says is, go step by step. First of all, understand that our interpretation of what the world throws at us is what gives us sorrow or happiness. It is not that the world is a source of happiness or sorrow. That the Shastras tries to teach us first. And it's easy to understand that. We'll take an example, and we take an example to say, like, look, death by itself is not an event of sorrow, because if death is an event that can produce sorrow, then every death in this world should produce sorrow in your mind. So it is not that the death is the cause of sorrow. It is your interpretation or your basically raga dvesha which makes it an event of sorrow or joy. And therefore, the world by itself is not a source of happiness or sorrow. The world is what it is. And therefore, we first say, okay, the world is what it is, but it is we slowly then disassociate ourselves with this world a little bit, in the sense the world is, we are getting detached a little bit from the world. We are not attached to this world anymore by actually reading, understanding, and actually putting this into practice. And then we realize slowly that the world, finally we will see that the world is nothing but mithya. Because what is mithya? It doesn't have any independent existence, and it has got a beginning and a end. Anything that is not sustainable, anything that is not, does not have an independent existence, is mithya. And again, how can we understand this? We again take the example of the dream to say that the world in the dream, when you are within the dream, felt so real. Everything seemed absolutely real. When there was this tiger which was chasing you in the forest in your dream, you had fear, you couldn't escape. But until the time you woke up, then you realize that it is actually a dream. And of course, after you wake up, you realize that the whole thing was mithya, or not true. In the same way, as long as we are in this world where we are identifying ourselves to be this body and mind, it looks as if that this is real. But to actually reduce the impact of this reality of this world is where the Shastras come and tell you, like, look, the world does not give you happiness or sorrow. Don't give too much importance to the world. It is only your likes and dislikes which is actually interpreting this sorrow and happiness, and therefore reduce your likes and dislikes, and thereby the world will cease to be in control of you, and therefore the world will lose its power on you, and thereby you will be slowly able to realize that the world is nothing but a superimposition on the Brahman. So it's a step, it allows you to go through that path through this understanding. I hope I was able to answer that. Ashishji, you have put your hands up. Okay, thank you. Any other points? Ashaji? Okay. Anyway, it's almost like 1 hour, so we'll close it for now. And we'll take it, and I'll share that particular Swami Paramarthananda's lecture in the group. Please do read through. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.